Nerd Rage Renegades.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Nerd Rage Renegades podcast, episode 107. And even though it is 107, it is time, once again, for everybody to come back to Middle-earth, because it is Talkin Tolkien 3, Chief, the third installment. And what would be a Talkin Tolkien? It would not be Talkin Tolkien without the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Mark Ordesky. Mark, welcome back.
Awesome. So pleased to be back, you guys, for Talkin Tolkien 3, the trilogy completes.
And,
yes.
and it's kind of Mark's series. We couldn't do it without Mark.
And then what we'll do is we'll wait a couple years, and then we'll come back with another trilogy.
Yes.
And then we'll come out. Well, actually, first we're going to come out with the extended editions of Talkin Tolkien.
Ooh, the extended edition. I
We're
take
gonna do
that.
The extended editions. But before we get in, I would like to read the first paragraph of Children of Hurin for our listeners.
I think you should.
That way they can understand the tasking that we are undertaking tonight as we talk the first stage of Middle-earth. So Bear with me as I read the first paragraph.
I'm going to find it. I'm going to follow along with you as you go.
Follow along with you, children, as I read the first paragraph of the Children of Hurin. And if I butcher any names, everybody butchers the names.
Everybody, you are forgiven.
See, Mark is an expert on this. You are forgiven from Mark Ordesky. Pronounce it how you will.
Hador Goldenhead was the lord of the Edain, and well beloved by the Eldar. He dwelt while his days lasted under the lordship of Fingolfin, who gave to him wide lands in the region of Hithlum, which was called Dorthloman. His daughter, Gloredhel, wedded Haldir, son of Halmir, lord of the men of Brethil, and at the same feast his son Galdor the Tall wedded Harith, the daughter of Halmir. That's what we're undertaking, and that's just one paragraph.
People should literally have such empathy for the thing we are undertaking here.
So we talked...
We haven't even touched everything that happened before this. So
we haven't even mentioned Melkor. We haven't mentioned Arda,
the Ainur, the Ilúvatar.
We haven't
not to mention those whose names we cannot pronounce.
Yeah.
And there are in the first stage there are a lot of them. It's very
biblical. The thing about the Silmarillion that it's kind of as striking to me how it kind of mirrors a creation story, like the whole beginning of it, where you've got the God basically creating like these Ainur, and they begin to sing the world, which I thought was a beautiful thing because the world Middle-earth starts with music, basically.
Which is so Tolkien. It's kind of awesome.
Indeed, and they sing, and they kind of their music starts to form the kind of terra firma of the planet, and then it keeps building from there. Their song. It's kind of hard. You're right, Mark. This is going to be incredibly hard to explain.
So, for those of you who don't know the first stage, the first stage, of course, happens all before Bilbo. And I want you to know we're recording this on Friday, And Bilbo's birthday was yesterday.
The 22nd, Bilbo Frodo. Yeah.
Bilbo and Frodo's birthday was yesterday, so we're doing this in honor of the birthdays. But if you would like to if you would like yourself to go out and see what we're talking about this whole episode, there are 3 books that I have that would be very interested that you would be interested in. The first, of course, is the Silmarillion.
Yes.
Which is basically all first stage, pretty much.
Right.
This is everything that happens before Bilbo.
Yeah, and it works.
And a few things that happened before Bilbo, and before.
And before
a lot of the stuff that they reference in Fellowship, or a lot of the flashbacks you see in through the Lord of the Rings, has stuff that probably what more of the Second Age, but there's mentioning
that's really Second Age.
Yeah.
Here's one thing. Here's how one way you can ground yourself if you know zero about the First Age. Sauron is in the First Age. Yeah. He's the number 2 guy of evil, but he is there.
Yes.
Yes.
So the Silmarillion.
So it has the Hobbit movies have a couple of mentions to some First Age stuff, kind of throwbacks. I believe Galadriel says, doesn't she say some servant of Melkor or something at one point in that movie?
Yeah.
And
Right.
there's a few little things that tie into this early First Age from the movies if you've seen them.
Yep.
The second book, of course, is what you just heard me read the first paragraph, which is The Children of Hurin.
Yes.
Fantastic read. It's one of those I feel you actually have to read like twice in a row to fully get everything.
Yeah.
Because
I think that's right. You also need a notepad because there's a lot of names. Characters have multiple names, even more so than in like Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. And I definitely did that the first time I read it. I had a pad of paper like with my own cheat sheet.
And then, of course, Unfinished Tales.
Ooh.
Got it, because Unfinished Tales, especially, I think there's 2 volumes. I think there's volume 1 and volume 2. But they have stories from the First Age, the Second Age, and, of course, the Third Age. Such as this one talks about Turin when he fled from Morgoth's forces. Prince Aldarion in the Second Age, and of course Isildur, as we all know, Isildur from the Lord of the Rings. Cut the ring.
It's kind of a weird thing. It just kind of popped into my head. It's kind of a weird parallel for people to maybe get their head around. The First Age, if you think of like the new Star Wars movie, The Force Awakens, is kind of almost like a reboot of the way the original Star Wars saga began. The First Age is almost like that, but with Melkor or Morgoth, the villain. There was another Dark Lord before Sauron.
Yes.
That was essentially Sauron's boss. And they kind of the whole First Age is kind of the forming of the world, the coming of the elves. You have like the coming of the Noldoran elves, and then you have like the Sindarin elves, and then all these things start to populate Middle Earth until you finally get to the coming of man, which are the what are they? I can't even remember what they're called now.
Well, by the way, you also have the forming of the orcs, which is referenced in the Lord of the Rings when Saruman says, the orcs, they were elves once. It's sort of like a quick line if you're not paying attention. But of course, in the First Age, some elves are sort of captured by Melkor and twisted into orcs, which helps tell you why orcs and elves have such a ferociously bad hatred of one another. So you realize that's First Age.
Yeah. And during that time, Melkor also started breeding the trolls. Creating the trolls.
I'm a little less clear on how exactly that happens, but yes, quite right.
Well, sort of like how like what we were talking about. I said before was like these Ainur or these spirits or whatever. They eventually descended to Earth themselves. There's some sort of like all powerful being that's still out there in the ether somewhere. But these Ainur are descendants of this to the Earth, and you have like Manwë and Ulmo and all these different. And Melkor is one of those spirits.
Yeah.
And his jealousy drives him to create bastardized forms of the good things that the other gods or demigods are creating on the planet. So, like in opposition to the Ints, he creates Balrogs.
Yeah.
Like in opposition to men and elves, he creates orcs. He creates all these twisted versions of all the good things in Middle Earth, and he's sort of your first Dark Lord setup guy throughout the First Age.
That's true. And there's also a primordial spider, whether that's like a forebear of Shelob or not. I'm not embarrassed to say that I don't remember. But there's like, yes, and there's like this, they refer to it as almost like a primordial, almost like a Lovecraftian style being in the form of a spider.
Yeah, I just was reading, that was one of the things I refreshed myself on today. It says that, I think they refer to her as a female spider creature, whatever, but it was created by Melkor, I guess, but then became autonomous on her own more than to be the servant and wanted to carve out her own kingdom. So almost becoming almost as powerful as Melkor at the time. And they ended up teaming up and devising a plan against Middle-earth at some point.
Yes.
And what a lot of people need to understand is you got Middle-earth, which is what we know as, the main realm, but then you had the realm of Valinor.
Right.
Valinor is beyond the sea, beyond the Grey Havens, beyond the horizon. That's where Gandalf and all them came from.
Yeah.
And the Blue Wizards, which I can't quite remember their names. Because I don't have the rights. Because I don't have the rights to the Silmarillion. I read that the reason why they couldn't say the Blue Wizards' names in the Hobbit movies was because they did not have the rights to the Silmarillion.
Correct.
What a brilliant way around it, though.
That's a very brilliant way around it.
Gandalf's foggy memory or whatever.
That or you're just thinking, Ian McKellen just forgot how to say the name, so he just said, I forgot their names. Just ad-lib that line.
Which is an awesome in-joke for everyone that knows their names and is well-versed in the First Age.
Exactly. The First Age is millenniums. I mean, it's just millenniums and millenniums and millenniums deep.
Well, by the way, here's my favorite part. When Melkor gets imprisoned by the elves at one point, or some faction of the elves, they say that he's imprisoned for 3 ages.
Yeah.
Like, that's how long his jail sentence is. And you realize, wait a minute, 3 ages, isn't that what we're talking about? Is that literally the equivalency of going from First Age all the way to the stuff of Lord of the Rings? And you realize he was in jail for that long.
Yeah,
Melkor, and I have it right here. Melkor was captured and bound in the Great Chain Anguinor.
Right.
In 4599. He did not escape, or he was freed from his sentence in 4900. So he was in prison from 4599 to 4900.
Like in the time a species can evolve and to be from appearing on Middle-earth to becoming a dominant race.
But he came out of prison very crafty, because he didn't come out. He came out all like, I've learned my lesson. I'm a good guy now. And then of course that's the real deception, because of course he was not a good guy.
Right.
And
And during that whole time, Sauron was still out there. He had escaped capture.
Sauron was basically in his own Tora Bora, like off, like in some other part of, like, nursing, like, the machinery that is creating more orcs and more trolls, and exactly.
He's keeping the home fires burning for 3 millennium.
Correct. That's loyalty, by the way.
Melkor comes back. Sauron, where's dinner at? I've been in jail for this long. There's no dinner on the table. The house is dirty. Got orcs everywhere.
Now, I'm trying to find out what I cannot remember for the life of me who actually created the Silmarils, but the Silmarils were the stones.
The 3 stones.
The lights of the stars in them.
Yeah.
And they were kind of what Melkor wanted for ultimate power.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find the date they were made here on the timeline, but I can't seem to find it.
This is why timelines are such great things.
Yes.
Because before the First Age, that's when the supreme beings started creating everything, like Alul the Smith and Varda and all them were creating pretty much everything. The Valar was creating pretty much all the life that you would know it. The dwarves and the Ents and everything like that. And of course, Melkor was there a lot, which is kind of funny because I'm a World of Warcraft player, Mark. I don't know if you've ever delved into Warcraft at all.
Only a little bit.
But the history behind Warcraft is very much set in stone in Tolkien. There were these